Warrior, it is with great pleasure that we bring back today Gloria Masters because we are determined to go through Gloria's newest book, Keeping Kids Safe, a roadmap for parents, teachers, and others. I'm holding up my copy here. You will see I have my little heart sticker in the chapter we are going to be reviewing. Gloria is the most amazing woman. I kid you not, a true warrior. I'll tell you a little bit about Gloria in her own words on the back cover of her book. You know, Gloria bravely has stepped out of her own life and what she has suffered. I think I'll say suffered, if you don't mind, Gloria, to
Sure.
share, to educate all of us. It is truly a road map, this book. I'm buying it for everybody. When people I know, grandparents, parents, or the children are having birthdays, I'm giving them the book. That's my gift. Not the children have lots of things. At least that's the way I look at it. Let me educate and teach. And Gloria is, no pun intended, I'm going to say like a master with all of this. But this is Gloria's third book, her memoir on Angel's Wings. My Flight from Trauma to Grace details 16 years of unparalleled child sexual abuse. Trauma. While her second book, Flight Path to Healing, a guide for child sexual abuse, CSA survivors, provided a comprehensive guide for CSA survivors healing from their abuse and trauma. And all of these books are available, of course, on the website, gloriamasters.com, Amazon, wherever books are sold. Support local bookstores. If they don't have it, I know firsthand, because this is what I'm doing, they will order it for you. So let's all support small businesses. You know, Gloria is also the CEO founder of the charity Handing the Shame Back Foundation. And let's do it together, Gloria. June 2023 released the global hand signal for children to signal they are not safe. Let's do it together. Whoop, let me get my hand in. So it's up. Gloria Masters, welcome back to the Warriors.
Thank you, you amazing woman that you are, Lynn.
No, thank you, Gloria. But you know what? Without you, and I say this again, bravely sharing your history, your trauma, your abuse, I couldn't do my job because I feel so fortunate. I have not ever suffered any of that. And the more I do this work, Gloria, or this calling, or this whatever you want to call what we must do, you, me, um, I'm finding out it is much more prevalent and much more in today's society, becoming so much more normalized, and that we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep raising awareness. We have to keep educating. We cannot be silent because let's start with, I like to quote you, last time, and I'm going to have the interview we did. I don't even like to say interview, Gloria. I like to call them chats, discussions, girlfriends talking, whatever. Interview just sounds so cold to me, but I guess technically that's what it is. But I feel like just friends chatting. Last time, and I'll have this in the body of this video as well, we talked about definitions, what words actually mean surrounding all this child sexual abuse. So we'll continue having that in the body of the video as we continue this series of explaining exactly what all of this is. And today we're going to cover child sexual abuse. So let me put out a warning. This is what we are going to be talking about. We don't want to trigger anybody, upset anybody. We are talking about reality. We're talking about facts. So if you don't want to hear it, now's your chance. But I know because you're here on Lynn's Warriors, you do want to hear about this and learn from it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Gloria, I want to start with something first with you before we dive into all of this. How are you doing? Because I know you just finished an interview. Now you're talking with me. You're dredging up, your history, your feelings. If I may ask, how do you deal with this every day?
That's a really good question, actually, Lynn. I haven't been asked that for a while. Look, I deal with it because I'm on such a mission. It's my purpose in life, and I'm so grateful because for many of us, we don't have a purpose. And so I wake up every morning bouncing because I'm excited about moving through this and sharing this work, and I know that what I do helps save children. So that's huge for me. And how I deal with it, bringing it up, is because I've managed to heal from it. And I've done that in lots of ways. I've done it through therapy, done it in group work, done it through exercise, done it through meditation, done it through spiritual aspects. And of course, at times, Lynn, I'm only human. I'm going to get triggered. And if that happens, I recognize that in myself and manage to cope. But I think I'm quite lucky because I was always born sunny side up. And so I'm the person that will be at your place and I'll be the one laughing at something people may not even find funny. So I just have that personality.
That's a wonderful trait because remember, laughter is really the best medicine. I mean, I don't know about you, Gloria, but sometimes I find myself inappropriate laughing at things I shouldn't be laughing at. Just maybe it's a release or something like that.
Yes.
Things are so horrible. I see this
Yeah.
different twist to things that nobody else is laughing at, but I laugh and then I'm like, oh, that felt good. But it was maybe perhaps even a stupid kind of thing, but I'm like, laughter. I'm actually here in New York City and I'm teaching kids and parents, caregivers, let it out.
Yes.
Laugh,
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
communicate, run around.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Now we're going to start diving into this. The introduction, this is part 1 of the book, Child Sexual Abuse. You say the more silence around this, the less children can speak. Explain that, Gloria.
Yeah, look, what I notice is this. Because there's a taboo, and we've talked about that cognitive dissonance, people feel uncomfortable with this subject because it goes against their morals, ethics, values. So they'd rather turn away. But all that does for children who are very observant, it gives them then a sense of what can I do or what can I say, and that's not on the table. So the less it's spoken about, the less likely or the less confident a child will be to ever raise it. And just to clarify, by that I mean normalizing a conversation. So parents, grandparents, teachers, having a pizza night with your family and raising it and talking about what kids can do to help keep themselves safe and what they as the safe adults can do. Does that answer your question?
It does, but it leads me to 50 other questions because, because here's the thing I don't get, Gloria. We have to talk about all of this because the way society is, I mean, you're halfway across the world from me, but what is being thrown at us, whether it's online, whether it is the disruption and the noise in media, um, even the sexualization, of television programming, online program, the kids in school now. I don't want to get, all political, but things have seemed to, they're out of control. I feel like, so here's my big takeaway from this, Gloria. So much is thrown at kids right now. Why don't we just step in? Why aren't we the warriors? We will inoculate our children and give them appropriately the information, how to protect themselves, have them come to us and say, somebody made me uncomfortable, whether, real time or online. And I know it sounds a little pie in the sky what I'm saying, but the kids are seeing so much online, nude images. All week I've been working on artificial intelligence and things like that, different interviews and discussions that's here, which is going to be a mess. So, we have to be the ones to give them the information. And so, I don't understand. I'm not kidding, Gloria, when I say this, why everybody is still so embarrassed about everything, or these are our precious kids, our families, our communities. We have to say enough because and I know predators, these criminals, I like to call them, are counting on us to be embarrassed and not talk about any of this so they can continue on with their criminality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, child sexual abuse is a perfect crime for many reasons. One, it's conducted in secrecy.
Mhm.
No one's told about it. And two, the child will never speak because to this day, as we know, children that speak out are not usually believed. And that brings me to my next point. So people say to me, well, why won't children speak? Well, here's 400 reasons why. Children won't speak because they don't sometimes understand what's actually happening to them. Secondly, they fear that their parent or caregiver may not believe them over another adult, that they won't be being believed at all, that they'll worry they'll be blamed, they'll worry that the whole family might split up, they'll worry that that the abuser will hurt them because the abuser may have threatened to hurt them or another family member. So there's a myriad of reasons, and to a child, to this day, to a child, an adult has the power. So I totally understand why they won't. And we do know that only 10 to 15% of children will ever speak of this. But what they will do, Lynn, and we've got to give parents and grandparents hope, they will always, always show us through their behaviour. So let's start learning how to read that.
Interesting. And I just want to throw in that I've had a few people, Gloria, say to me they didn't know any different in their family, perhaps, and they thought this was some form of love. They just didn't know. They thought, other kids suffer this as well. They had no idea. Before I keep saying before we get into this, but something keeps going around. Oh, go ahead, Gloria.
But I do want to bring in a gentle challenge. Regardless of whether it was normal in the family and happened every day, if you speak to that child or adolescent or adult today, they will always tell you it felt wrong.
Right.
So instinct is power, and for parents and people who love the children, you are the lived subject experts. You are the subject matter expert on your child, and I think we've got to give parents back some power. They know, they can tell by looking at a child's face that something's wrong. And I think we've got to stop telling people what to do and start allowing them and encouraging them to trust their instinct. You can tell if your child is feeling unsafe or unwell because of what they're showing, and a parent is geared right from day dot to read that information. So I'll put that there too.
Okay, so now let me throw something, a little bit of a wrench in all of this.
Yep.
If you don't mind. Something sticks with me that I learned from you.
Huh?
I know, but it's absolutely true that a lot of this abuse is, familial trafficking. So who's looking out for those kids? Perhaps another family member can help, a teacher can help, if they're in a church or something. That is what's sticking with me, because we're teaching safety, we're teaching education, tools, but and it's all your fault, Gloria, but I keep thinking about these kids. See how we're laughing? It's good. We have to laugh while we talk about these things.
Yes.
But I keep thinking, Gloria, about all these kids who don't have that concerned parent or grandparent. Who is looking for them in all of this child abuse?
Yes, and I love what you say, and that's why I'll often say, if not you, then who? I think it's a collective responsibility, I think, for teachers and those outside of the immediate family. A child can't help but show when something's wrong. Children can't hide behaviour. They don't have the cognition to hide how they feel. That can be taught to them over time, but generally children are very instinctual and very honest in their behaviour. Switch off the words and start noticing the behaviour. It's honestly not difficult. And if you look, there's a whole raft of behaviours, but I would always take people to go to either end, go to either extreme. If a child is out of control, there's a reason they're showing you something, they're really showing you something's off. Or if they're equally very, very withdrawn and just not speaking or engaging. Or the third one is if their behaviour has changed. So, I mean, again, we're very grateful to children, Lynn, because in my opinion, they show us everything. We just need to learn their language.
So it's right in front of us, is what you're
Right
saying.
in front
We
of
just
us.
need to be able to admit it and recognize it, because That old saying that, whatever your gut tells you is what you're pointing out is usually the direction to go into. Gloria, do you want to use your story at all? Like you described yourself as becoming very cheeky and beginning to act out. Do you want to share any of that with us
Sure,
to give
sure,
that as an example so any
100%.
warriors listening understand what we're talking about?
Yeah. So, for those tuning in, I was abused sexually as a child, and I was trafficked by my father to groups and to individuals. And it was his mother, my grandmother, who trained me how to be the most effective, best child sex worker possible. But what I learned to do, you see, school was my only safe place. So at school, I could be me and I could be free. But due to the trauma and the constant abandonment, neglect, abuse, I was out of control. As I look back, Lynn, I was screaming, help me, see me, rescue me. But no one was picking up what I was putting down. And I'm hopeful that today teachers, when they look at behaviour, look beyond the behaviour, because all I was doing was screaming. If I'd had this hand sign, I would have been using it. Because abusers will always threaten children to never speak. Now they'll either manipulate them, threaten them, or they'll flatter them into that. But the reality is they don't ever say, but don't show. They only say, don't you ever tell anyone. But to be honest, this isn't telling anyone. This is just nonverbal.
Right.
We've got to start getting around the predators. We've got to start finding ways to inform and support and resource children.
Thank you, Gloria, for sharing. I'm always very cautious because it's your story. So
Fine.
I always want you to relay. That's why I'll always say, do you want to share whatever you want to
Yeah.
share instead of
Right.
me, because I've read all of your books. I know the story, but I want you to tell it because again, it's your story.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have children. Let's
But
talk about
let me tell you one more thing, because I
sure.
think this will speak very powerfully. At the end of a school day, I would hide. And I would hide, Lynn, because I didn't want to go home.
But where did you hide? Where were you hiding?
I would hide in the school toilets. I would hide behind the bike shed at school. I would hide underneath the caretaker's area where he'd parked a truck. I would hide wherever I could because I did not want to leave the school grounds. The minute I left the school grounds, I was targeted. So that's how terrible this was. And I think for people watching and listening, just know if a child is showing reluctance about going somewhere or leaving from somewhere, that's a sign as well.
Hmm. I hadn't thought about that. I will add that to my list of everything. Gloria, let me ask you. It's funny because all week I've been talking to different people in business or interviews, discussions, meetings, and the word listening keeps coming up many
Yes.
times over. We as society, I don't think, do a very good job at listening to each other. And we're certainly not listening to the kids if we're not listening, to each other as adults. Do you think, what do you think, Gloria, about this just be part of child rearing today because it's so prevalent, all of this abuse, that we start out, I don't want to use the word training, but I think so, educating the kids from the get go about all of this and talk to them. And then they would be so conditioned if we start it like age appropriately at a young age, like we teach the alphabet, we teach to read, we teach math so that they would grow up just automatically. This is wrong. Like if somebody comes near
Yes.
me or makes me, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Oh, 100%. I think it's along with managing your finances. Actually, all this stuff is life skills. In the book, there's a section in the book called Tools for Children. And when you and I get to that, it has a whole section on body safety rules. That should be taught in schools. It can be age appropriate, but that's in Tools for Children. Now, the reason is if children knew how to keep their bodies safe and what the rules were around their own bodies, and it was drummed into them like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they would stand more of a chance of noticing when something was coming at them which wasn't okay.
I'm going to walk it back for a second. I want you to define child sexual abuse. I want to be very clear that people understand exactly what those three words mean: child sexual
Yes.
abuse.
I'm really glad you asked that, because I did actually think that's a very important thing. So child sexual abuse, again, I like to keep things very simple, Lynn, because we don't need to confuse anybody, but it's known as a form of child sex abuse or child abuse in which an older adolescent or adult uses a child for sexual gratification. That's it. Now, children are defined as under 18 because they don't always understand what is happening to them. They don't have the cognition to, and they're considered unable to give consent. So, child sexual abuse, a form of child abuse in which an older adolescent or adult gains sexual gratification from a child. But there's many, many forms of child sexual abuse. So one, as we know, is the physical, one is the non-physical. So that could be someone masturbating in front of a child. That's considered child sexual abuse. One is exploitation, where they're showing children images, like pornography. And then the final one is online sexual exploitation, where they actually have the child and they're trying to get the child engaged in that. So those four key areas constitute child sexual abuse. Any form of abuse in which an older adolescent or an adult gets sexual gratification, that's all you need to know. That's child sexual abuse.
I'm sort of digressing, Gloria, but
does that make sense, by the way?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. But I want to
Good.
make sure, because I'm also, Gloria, what I know, I always have to remind myself most people don't know. So I always have to go back, explain exactly what child sexual abuse. Explain, well, while we're here, explain it. Grooming. I think we have to explain this every time we talk. What is grooming?
So grooming is where an adult gets, but I'm not going to use a child here. I'm just going to say generically, where someone gets something they want from you, either through flattery, bribery, guilt, or fear, manipulation.
Exactly.
So we know, you and I will look at the chapter on grooming as we do more of these, but we know basically that the four groups that are groomed are children, parents, community, and society.
Gloria, I was always amazed that in talking to so many victims, survivors, that they would say to me, their mothers, for instance, and in some cases the mothers were the abusers, but knew what was going on and never opened their mouths. And I always find, as a mother of children, I feel like I'd kill somebody who harmed my child. I don't care. I don't care. I'd live in the street because if somebody touched my children. Why? But that's me. And I say that, and I've never been put in the position, so it's easy for me to kind of say that. But why won't more mothers or caregivers speak up? Is it just the fear factor? What is it?
I think there's a whole host of things. We do what we do, Lynn, with our subconscious driving us, and that's with anything. So in a situation like this, if your lived experience has been that you've been either abused yourself and never believed, or you've been, kind of seriously abused and then abused into adulthood and attracted people who carry on abusing you, that's another one. Another one can be fear because that person is a powerful figure, either in their personal life or to someone that matters to them. For instance, you could, your brother could be best mates with that person, and your brother might have said, please don't ever say anything. I know he's trying to stop this. So there's lots of, it's unfortunately as convoluted as the horror of child sexual abuse is, equally as convoluted are the gatekeepers, the enablers, and the people who are connected to them.
Yes, it's such a complicit crime. There's, again, I use that analogy that it's a big wheel with like a lot of spokes, and the spokes all make this wheel go around. That's
Yeah.
that's how I describe it. Now, Gloria, share with us um, how to recognize an abuser, because I don't know. My children are adults now, but if it was today, there would never be a sleepover in anybody's house. There would never. I don't know if I'd let them out the door these days. If they were young, I think I'd be homeschooling. I don't know how I do all this, Gloria, but the work you do and I do. Give us some tips on what
Recognizing abusers.
recognizing and what might seem a little bit off, because I still see people drop their kids off for summer camp, and every summer I'm worried, oh, sleepaway camp, what could happen there?
Yeah.
So how do you
Yeah.
recognize abusers?
Well, you're going to love this answer, so I'm just going to ask you to breathe. It's almost impossible. They could look like me. They could look like the guy who pumps the gas down the road. They could look like the principal at the school or the local dentist. The problem is this has become so prolific that it is not someone who we would necessarily attribute that to, but we know that over 90% are well known to the family. So there's a big clue right there. In recognizing the abuser, just notice what happens over time. And again, your child is your key. So parents, grandparents, start to notice what the child shows you. If someone comes into the room and they suddenly want to cling to you, if you notice that when that person wants to take all the kids out for ice cream and this child hangs back and doesn't want to go, don't make them. Don't push them into it. Start to observe behavior. They're showing you with everything they've got. If you notice that this abuser wants to take them to the swimming pool with all the other kids, and this kid just wants to cling to you and not go or not get into their swimsuit, signs like not wanting to change out of clothes or get into get changed or unchanged. The whole thing is this: children are the key to recognizing, but equally as the adults. I want you to be really, really clear here. Most adults I know, or most parents I know, love a break from their children. Yes. How unusual for a single person to want to take your children away.
Yes.
So to me, that's a huge red flag. I'll babysit, you guys go out. No thanks.
That to me is one of the top things, Gloria, when I read, because every day the headlines, we have so many things online, stories about all of this.
Yeah.
And it's like, they let this neighbor take the fifth grader to school in the morning. I don't think I would have been doing that even 30 years ago. It's very strange to me that, again, and we're talking, these issues that we talk about are more, in the media or online, or shows are covering them. We're certainly covering them. Why do people do that? That's the mindset I'm trying to get at. Why would they do that?
Okay. Why would they let their child go?
Why would you let your 40-year-old male neighbor, I'm just making up something, walk your 11-year-old daughter to school, or take her out for ice cream? Like, why would anybody allow that?
Well, because you've got to keep in mind too, remember we're looking at people respond with everything about you that has happened to you has led you to this point in your life. Generic you, me, you, anyone. So what we do, we can only respond to a situation with our past experience and our ability to cope, rationalize, reason, regulate behavior, self-regulate, all of that. So if my experience is being horrendously abused and I'm not healed, I'm going to think that someone who wants to take my young child is probably good, and yay, I can get a break, because my radar isn't necessarily on for that, because as you said earlier in the show, it's become normalized. It felt like it was a normal thing. So I don't think it's that people intentionally want their children hurt and abused. I think it's more there's a lack of awareness. And you and I both know the psychopaths among us and the very charming people among us have a way of shutting down fear. But I do know this: when I speak to parents whose children have been abused, they have thought back and said, oh, I did feel a little bit of
See?
unease. But they didn't recognize it because this person's flattering them, saying all the right things. And that's what I mean about grooming. It's the people in charge of the children, i.e. parents or caregivers, that are the ones that are being groomed the most.
You know what I love about this book of yours, and I'm going to say of ours now because we're sharing it with the world, Keeping Kids Safe. It's ours. It's no longer yours, Gloria. A roadmap for parents, teachers, and others, is that I like how you have at the end of the chapter here, like you have a checklist,
Yeah.
which is perfect. And then you
Yep.
also have a planning section where people
Yep.
can take some notes, or as they're reading it, jot something down. I am a great note taker. And again, if I don't write something when I think of it, I could forget it. So I'm like always constantly walking around with notebooks and writing things down. That it makes it so easy. You go through in this chapter child sexual abuse. And again, it's very I don't want to use the word easy because none of this is easy with this subject, everybody, but Gloria really breaks it down what it is. So it is easy for you to understand. And I also want to say, Gloria, people could write to you. Is that would you welcome that if they write to you to ask questions?
100%. Of course. And the other thing I was going to say, Lynn, is we should also start doing some Q&A stuff, or having these
Do it live.
do a live. I think you'd be
I,
surprised.
I was thinking about that, but then I didn't. We'll discuss that because I was thinking of doing it that way, but then there's
Yeah.
always somebody who comes on to play, if you know what I mean, and
Well,
disrupts the whole.
well, then maybe people could email you any questions, and then you and I can discuss them on the show.
You know what? That's a great idea, Gloria. I'm going to do that
Yeah.
for the next time we
Yeah.
talk, which will be in the not too distant future. But I do want to say to everybody that you describe everything that I know, do not know about. The different types of sexual abuse. You know, again, we reviewed recognizing abusers, the different sibling sexual abuse, intrafamilial. We have to keep brainwashing everybody, Glory, with what these things are. Because again, I work with a lot of healthcare providers, and kids especially don't even understand like they're being trafficked or they're being abused because they don't know the indicators. They don't know what it is. And so
No.
this is an excellent chapter to start with. Again, we did the definitions last time. We'll have all of this in the body of this video. Gloria, leave us with some final thoughts for today. What do you want everybody? What kind of take action do you want everybody to leave with? Because I'm always about taking action. We have to, as warriors, take action. You know, some final thoughts and a take action.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think, we've talked about the more silence around this, the less a child can speak. But equally, I think for the beautiful safe adults watching, thank you. We've got to save some kids. But my challenge to you, a key action point, please, is start to look at behaviour when people are in the room, when people leave the room, when a child starts to regress. That is a very big sign. If a child starts to be clingy and they weren't, if a child starts to suck a thumb, if a child constantly says they're sick and they're not, it could all be indicating there's something wrong with where they're being sent or the person that is taking them. Please, please, please start noticing what children do. That's my takeaway.
I love that. Start noticing, start listening, start just communicating with everything.
Yeah.
Gloria, what we're going to do for our next tutorial is I am going to actually, solicit questions and we'll get them
Okay.
and address those, and we can promote our next segment we do together as that. I think that's very important that the public ask those questions and that you can answer them. GloriaMasters.com is the website. This, everybody, is what you need in your house, keeping kids safe. Gloria Masters, you make me happy. You're infectious and your tone is so soothing. And, because I have to say, I could really just start screaming about all of this. And you keep me calm. Because
Mm.
when did children become chattel? That is what I am saying these days. It is unacceptable. It is enough. We are not tolerating it under our watch. Gloria, I can't thank you enough. You are a brave warrior. I am indebted. Bless you. I'm so happy we know each other. We are going to continue on this path and we are going to educate, raise awareness, and we are going to help, save, rescue, whatever everybody wants to call it, intervene and protect children, not only here where I am in New York City, the United States, but Gloria, where you are halfway across the world. And where
New
are you? New
Zealand,
Zealand.
New Zealand,
But we are
everywhere.
we are twin warriors. We twin
Yeah.
warriors. So Gloria Masters, thank you so
Thank
much for taking the time and joining us today. All to be continued. Thanks, Gloria.
Thank you so much, lovely Lynn.